Welcome to another episode of Cal's Corner here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. Folks, I'd like to thank you for tuning in again. It's nice to be back here for a second consecutive week. I again apologize that for the past, couple of months or 6 weeks or whatever it was, I wasn't always available every week due to traveling to different countries. Couldn't make it work, but I'm back and expect to be on every week faithfully. And I'm really excited today about the show because we have a wonderful topic to talk about, one that has consumed the mass media and social media, both conservatives, liberals, and centrists, and that is the issue of President Donald Trump's recent comments allegedly made in a meeting concerning immigration reform. He supposedly called and referred to certain countries as being, quote, shithole countries or shithole nations, depending on whom you believe in the various accounts that have been provided about the meeting. Now, we have to keep in mind that there is no transcript of the meeting and there is no tape recording of the meeting, no video recording. Therefore, it boils down to he said, she said. But the whole issue of whether it is right or even racist to call any country a shithole country or nation, that's what we're going to talk about. And having been to 27 countries myself, I think I have some insight into the issue. Plus, I've been engaging people on Facebook, on my Facebook page at Facebook/cal.korff, which anybody can read, and you can see some of the back and forth that we've had there. So the executive producer of the show is the legendary Rob McConnell, and let's get into the main topic here, which, of course, is shithole countries. Now, American President Donald Trump has been widely accused once again of being a racist. These most recent allegations against him, as of the show, have been made by everyone from the mainstream media to various politicians. Now, the claim that Trump is a racist is not new. Get over it. It is not new. If anything, it is a charge that has dogged him since October 15th, 1973, when the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, filed a lawsuit against him, his father, Fred Trump, and the Trump Management Company, which we'll just call TMC for short, for refusing to rent or negotiate rentals, quote, because of race and color, unquote, according to the Justice Department complaint against him. Now, back then, Donald Trump was the TMC's president, the Trump Management Corporation's president. The company controlled some 15,000 apartments in New York. Now, commenting on the DOJ's lawsuit, Donald Trump denied the charges, insisting that he was a racist, insisting that, quote, they are absolutely ridiculous. We never have discriminated, and we never would. There have been a number of local actions against us, and we've won them all. This is according to a direct quote that was from Donald Trump that was printed in the New York Times dated October 16th, 1973. Now, the DOJ's court case was eventually settled nearly 2 years later after Trump had countersued for $100 million. It was settled on June 10th, 1975, to the satisfaction of all concerned parties. There was no admission of wrongdoing by the Trump Management Corporation, and it agreed to provide for a period of 2 years a weekly list of all new vacancies that opened in its properties, and it would turn over that list to the New York Urban League's Open Housing Center, who would then refer potential renters to it for consideration of tenancy. The objective by the New York Urban League and the Department of Justice was to increase the number of black and Hispanic tenants or minority tenants in the Trump properties. Now, this wasn't the only time that Trump was accused of being a racist. To cite a few more examples, author John R. O'Donnell, the former president of Trump Hotel and Casinos in Atlantic City, claimed in a 1991 book that he co-wrote with James Rutherford titled Trumped, the inside story of the real Donald Trump, his cunning rise and spectacular fall, that Trump once infamously said, quote, black guys counting my money. I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys that wear yarmulkes. Now, this means Jews. A yarmulke is a round skull cap that Jews wear every day. I think that the guy is lazy, referring to blacks, and it's probably not his fault because laziness is a trait of blacks. It really is. I believe that. It's not anything they can control. Now, let's be honest, that is a racist, stereotypical statement. It is also factually nonsense. It's, as the Jews would say, bullschlacken, okay, which the American equivalent of that is BS. Look at athlete Michael Jordan. Would you ever accuse him of being lazy? No. Instead, the only way you could describe him is incredible, brilliant, wonderful, fantastic, one of a kind. Look at all the black sport athletes. Are they lazy too? No. They're incredibly skilled, unique, wonderful human beings. So the idea that all blacks are lazy is racist. Let's be clear. Let's not mince words on it. Now, when Trump was pressed about his claim made against him in this book, Trump actually admitted to journalist Mark Bowden in the May 1977 issue of Playboy magazine. Trump said, quote, "The stuff O'Donnell wrote about me is probably true." Now, that's as close as Trump came to ever admitting that he made a racist remark. Then Trump immediately attacked O'Donnell and said the guy is an effing loser, an effing loser. And that's a quote. Now, in mid-October 1992, Trump lost his appeal in yet another incident against a judgment won against him by the state of New Jersey's Casino Control Commission's division. Now, this was of their gaming enforcement unit. He had to pay a $200,000 fine for removing a black dealer from one of his casino tables because a gambler named Robert Labuti requested it, according to a 1992 article that was published by the United Press International. The two judges who denied Trump's appeal noted that, quote, "In our view, the transcript of witness testimonies fairly reeks of Trump Plaza's guilt." Again, this is what the judges said. So fast forward now to the present, and decades later, Trump is still fighting against charges that he is a racist, allegations which resurfaced, en masse, especially during his campaign for president. According to an article that was published in the Washington Post on June 10th, 2016, Trump again denied such allegations, claiming instead that he is, quote, "the least racist person," unquote. And Trump has recently repeated that quote, that he is the least racist person you can possibly imagine. Now, yet despite his denials, other inexcusable antics by Trump, such as questioning the authenticity of Barack Obama's birth certificate, it certainly reeks of arguable racism, although that's not enough to prove it. Trump never said, "I don't believe his birth certificate because he's black." He never said that. Along with other vile remarks Trump has made, however, referring to Mexicans as being rapists and criminals and drug dealers, those are, again, racist remarks. They are broad brushes that stereotype nationalities, and that is wrong. It's like saying that all Germans are Nazis. It's not true. It's never been true. It never will be true. Now there is the latest controversy over words Trump purportedly said during a recent bipartisan meeting concerning immigration reform. Democrat Senator Richard Durbin claims that Trump reportedly asked, quote, "Why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here?" Trump is accused of singling out Haitians and Africans. Durbin says, in part, that, quote, "As Senator Lindsey Graham made his presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions, and in the course of his comments said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist. I use those words advisedly. I understand how powerful they are, but I cannot believe in the history of the White House, in that Oval Office, any president has ever spoken the words I personally heard on our president speak yesterday," unquote. Now, let's be blunt about this because I'm just that kind of guy. Durbin is obviously being either a drama queen or is ignorant of American history. After all, slavery was once legal in the USA until during the Civil War when it was finally abolished. Slavery, unquestionably, undeniably, irrefutably, is one of the worst forms of racism. Inexcusably, some past American presidents have indeed been foul-mouthed racists, as well as slave owners. Surely Durbin knows this. This fact does not excuse what Trump purportedly said, if the account is true, as communicated by Durbin. Unfortunately, Durbin's claim cannot be proven with 100% certainty, since there is no transcript of Trump's remarks, nor is there a recording. Indeed, others who were in that meeting have denied it, including Trump himself. This is a quote here. I'm telling you that Trump, did not use the word shithole, and I'm telling you it's a gross misrepresentation. Now, this is a quote made by Republican Senator David Perdue, who told CNN the whole issue was nonsense, and CNN automatically, like most of the media, blindly believed Durbin's account. Another person who was at that meeting said, quote, I didn't hear it, and I was sitting no further away from Donald Trump than Dick Durbin was. This is what Senator Tom Cotton has said. Republican Senator Tim Scott, who was not present at that meeting, he was not there, says that Senator Graham confirmed to him that Durbin's account is, quote, basically accurate, unquote. Well, let me remind you that basically accurate, however, is not 100% certainty. Other senators who were present have remained silent, while the Department of Homeland Security has denied that Trump also said these remarks. So we'll be back after this commercial break and continue with segment 2. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Gwilda Wiyaka's latest book, The Science of Magic, Book of Mysteries, Volume 1, is the first book in a series based on her writings that open every episode of the Science of Magic radio show. Drawing on the subject matter of each guest, and armed with over 40 years' experience in shamanism, 35 years in alternative health, and degrees in psychology and religious studies, Gwilda introduces relevant and leading-edge information that supports spiritual evolution and personal empowerment. Rich with wisdom and inspirational quotes packaged in digestible segments, this is a book that will pull you from cover to cover. It will also serve as a daily inspirational reading for years to come. The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1 is available at our website, tsompublications.com, amazon.com, and wherever fine books are sold. Back in Victorian England, a famous theologian posed a perplexing riddle. Why are the two top personalities in the Bible tagged with the numbers 7 and 11? Academics agree the answer is found in the stunning discovery of a hitherto secret Bible structure explained in a new book called The Genesis Grid. The discovery is so simple that preschool children could illustrate it. Certain claims are hugely controversial and may offend some, but at the X-Zone, we've studied this awesome new book and agree with one expert, and I quote, "These discoveries appear to be beyond coincidence." So who or what hid this wonderful pattern in the Bible, and what might they do next? Find out more, X-Zone Nation, and read reviews on www.genesisgrid.co.uk. That's www.genesisgrid.co.uk.
Welcome back to segment 2 here on Cal's Corner. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show, once again, is Rob McConnell. Now, let's review here, again, the serious charge that has been made by Senator Durbin against President Donald Trump. To review his words, Durbin says, and this is a quote, "As Senator Lindsey Graham made his presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions, and in the course of his comments said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist. I use those words advisedly. I understand how powerful they are, but I cannot believe in the history of the White House, in that Oval Office, any president has ever spoken the words I personally heard our president speak yesterday." Now, this is a very serious, powerful allegation against Trump. It's a very serious, powerful allegation against anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. But Durbin is not supported by other people who were in that room. Yes, Lindsey Graham more or less supports him, and according to a senator who claims he spoke to Lindsey Graham, said that Durbin's remarks are basically true. But basically true is not 100% certainty. That's obvious logic. And then others who were in that room adamantly deny that Trump had said what Durbin has accused him of. Now, what this boils down to is a case of he said, she said. Now, in this case, there's no woman involved, but the point is you have to pick whom you want to believe. Now, it's interesting that this dynamic exists in this controversy because when I raise this issue on social media, on my Facebook page, and you can easily see it on the internet, that there's no transcript, there's no recording. People got all upset. They said, you're a Trump supporter, you're, apologizing for Trump, all these excuses. And I find that false charge very disturbing because it continues a pattern, a very disgusting pattern that is unacceptable, that has happened since for over a year now. I was one of the few journalists who openly predicted in the Daily World, in the pages of the Daily World newspaper, that Donald Trump would win the presidency over Hillary Clinton. This is despite all the so-called experts and self-proclaimed analysts who followed the election. They overwhelmingly said that not only would Hillary Clinton win, she would win comfortably, maybe even by a landslide. The New York Times, for example, infamously predicted that there was almost a 100% certainty that Hillary Clinton would win. Now, I didn't really say much about this other than the fact that being in India, I was talking to fellow Americans, and they're angry. They are upset with our government because it has failed them. The United States is $20 trillion in debt. Barack Obama, when he ran for president, blasted Republican president who was outgoing, he had served 2 terms in office, George Bush, for raking up a deficit of $10 trillion. He called it irresponsible, and he specifically said that Bush had fought 2 wars on a credit card, and that's how he funded them. He's right. $10 trillion is irresponsible, depending on why you're $10 trillion in debt. Sometimes there's reasons for being in debt that are very valid. An emergency comes up, you need some money, maybe you have to go borrow it to put out a fire, so to speak. But there are also invalid reasons for being in debt. But $10 trillion, Obama said that was irresponsible. But yet by the time Obama left office, we must never forget, otherwise you're being a hypocrite if you criticize Bush for being $10 trillion in debt. Obama raked up another $10 trillion in debt. And the key difference here, folks, is that he wasn't fighting 2 wars, but yet $10 trillion more dollars. You might say, well, he had to bail out all the problems that Bush caused. Now, we're talking about the mortgage financial crisis. Well, first of all, Bush didn't cause those. Both the Democrats and Republicans caused those, and specifically former senators like Barney Frank led the charge during the Clinton years to cook the books and promote, if you will, or at least make it easy for the entities of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae to be corrupt and, of course, get involved in mortgages that were going to explode at one point and implode and cause a financial crisis, but they didn't care. And I've said for years that Barney Frank is corrupt, and I'll use one example that, in my opinion, proves it. Now, Barney Frank came out years into his terms in office. He's no longer with the government, thankfully. He came out as being gay. And while his sexual life is his own business, what Barney Frank did is his gay lover raked up over 20 parking tickets. Barney Frank pulled some strings and got him off. Now, imagine if Barney Frank had done that for everybody else. He would have been run out of office. But he did it for his gay lover. And if that isn't a real example of corruption, nothing is. Now, let's be clear. It doesn't matter that it was his gay lover. What matters is that it was his lover, period. And his lover, of course, was running a call service out of their apartment. And he says, oh, I knew nothing about it. Well, I don't know if he did or didn't. But the point is, when a senator interferes with the legal process and tries to get tickets removed and forgotten and wiped out for anybody, that is corruption, and it is wrong. You cannot defend it, but yet the Democrats to this day, they don't like to talk about it. They like to excuse it. They always have excuses, and it's wrong. Now let's go back to the issue of Durbin's claim against Trump. Either Durbin is right or he's wrong. Depends on whom you ask. And the media entities like CNN, they blindly believed Durbin's account. And that has now become problematical because for the first time, days after this so-called crisis exploded and the word shithole dominated the media, you see that the media is now admitting, well, we don't really know who said what because now we've got conflicting accounts. Well, no kidding, duh. I said this from day one, that unless you have a transcript that is valid and certified, or you have an independent recording that stands on its own, independent of what anybody says, it boils down to basically, to use an analogy, another UFO story. Somebody says, I saw a flying saucer. Another person standing next to him says, I didn't see anything. So what can you do with such a claim? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Furthermore, there's the issue of Durbin's credibility. For him to say that no president has ever talked like this, he must know better, or he's ignorant of history and shouldn't even be in office. Now, Durbin's credibility, let's be blunt, has taken hits before. You must remember, and of course the mainstream media who's anti-Trump for whatever reasons isn't talking about this. We must remember that this was the same Durbin who infamously claimed in October 2013 that a Republican congressman during budget negotiations actually told President Barack Obama, quote, I cannot even stand to look at you, unquote. Now, Durbin was discredited in his melodramatic account and his supposed quote that he heard when Obama's spokesman, Jay Carney, said it didn't happen, that he had looked into the incident, spoke with someone who was there, and Carney said, quote, it did not happen. Well, it did not happen means it never happened. Duh. Now, did the Democrats hold Durbin accountable for what seems to be lying? No, they didn't, of course. In fact, Harry Reid, who thankfully is one of yet another Democrat who's thankfully out of office, he took that false claim, that seemingly lie, and ran with it and smeared the Republicans over it. And Harry Reid, of course, has never been a beacon of truth. He's always been a beacon of innuendo and inference and things like that. Nothing positive. Thankfully, he's out of office. That's my constitutionally protected opinion. Now we turn to the issue of Donald Trump. Trump denies he said it. He denies he's a racist. But let's be blunt here. Trump's denial is also problematic, and I'll tell you why. It is beyond obvious that Trump does lie. He lies frequently. In fact, of all the people who ran for president in 2016, Even though he won the election, Donald Trump said more things that were false than all of the other candidates combined. That is not only inexcusable, it's shameful and nothing to be proud of. I mean, here you have Hillary Clinton lying about her email scandal. You've got Ted Cruz lying about all kinds of things as well because he's Ted Cruz, and Trump out-Trumped all of them. Now, the media and pundits have professed outrage over the controversy. They have a right to be upset over what happened, but the way they handled it wasn't always the best way. Instead of being responsible journalists and saying that Trump supposedly said, allegedly said, purportedly said, they claimed Trump said. It's a slam dunk. It's a done deal. It is a proven absolute certainty, and that is simply not true. And now, after they have spent days blanketing the airwaves and the print media and the social media with their broadcasts, making this allegation against Trump, some of them are starting to use the word alleged or purported because the whole claim has been weakened a bit by the other people who were in the room saying it never happened, and we ultimately don't know. Now, we'll come back in a moment after this commercial break, and we'll continue and wrap up this subject of the shithole controversy. My name is Kal Korff. I'm your host. We'll be back.
Broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond. You're watching the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back to segment 3 here on Cal's Corner radio show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. Now, to pick up where we left off, Donald Trump, President Trump, has denied that he said what Durbin claims. But let's be honest, Trump's denial, again, is problematic. We have no idea if it's factual or not, because Trump does not have a good track record of telling the truth. As I just said in the previous segment, it is beyond question that Donald Trump, of all the people who ran for president in 2016, told more lies and falsehoods than all the other candidates combined. Trump might deny that, but that would be yet another lie. I'm just being truthful with you. And I say this because I still get accused falsely by bozos out there, and I call them bozos because I think scientifically that does describe them where it concerns this charge against me. I get accused of being a Trump supporter when I'm not. I got news for you guys. I've never voted Republican. I never will, as far as I know. I also don't support the Democrats because in the late 1990s, I quit the Democratic Party. I quit being a Democrat because as far as I was concerned, the Democratic National Party has sold out to big business. And I blame both parties, the Republicans and Democrats, because they're the only two parties that have been in power, for causing almost all the problems that the great country of the United States, I'm an American, has been suffering and enduring through. The United States is imploding. Let's be blunt about it. The gap between the rich and poor is getting only bigger. And it's not just in America, it is globally, it is worldwide. I have seen this in many countries. I've even seen it, of course, in India. We must remember that as of this show, about 1% of the world's wealthiest people own about half of the world's wealth. Are you going to tell me with a straight face, with any credibility at all, with any logic, that this is a recipe for success? No, it is a ticking time bomb, and that time bomb is indeed ticking. The middle class of the United States has been shrinking for decades now. This is a fact. It is independent of George Bush or Barack Obama. It shrunk under Obama, it shrunk under Bush. It continues to shrink. Is that a recipe for success? No. In fact, yesterday, there was a story in the news that the Golden State of California, which is one of the largest top 10 economies in the world, now has the largest amount of poverty of all the states in the United States. Now, I was born and raised in California, but now you have more people leaving the state than entering it. And again, this is a recipe for disaster. America cannot continue on this course, even if it wasn't 20 trillion in debt. What's going to happen is things are going to get worse before they have any chance of getting better. This is not only true with the United States, it pretty much is with most of the rest of the world, because it is a global community, meaning that things that can happen in one country often affect the rest of the world, or at least some other countries around the planet, because again, we have this integrated economy. So if things suddenly go bad in China or India, it does affect things in the West because of manufacturing and cross-business deals that happen with these global companies. So when the left-wing, lamestream, la-la liberal media, as epitomized by networks like CNN and MSNBC, went all ballistic and called Trump a racist over what he said, even though they couldn't prove he really said it. Now, that little caveat there doesn't matter to them. Some of these bozos even started resuming calling Trump a Nazi. And when people play the Nazi card, that's a big red flag. And let me explain it in simple logic for you. To call anybody a Nazi, you better be damn careful. In the case of Trump, you're lying. And the logic here is beyond obvious. Even if you don't like Trump and you don't support him, and I don't, he's not a Nazi. And I'm a Jew, by the way, so I think I kind of know a little bit about the subject. And I certainly know about history. I was a top A-plus student in history, got several awards in it. I even wrote reports in high school that were hundreds of pages in length, asked my teachers. Trump is not a Nazi. He can't be. Wake up. Stop the hatred. The very things you claim you're against. Trump's daughter is a Jew. His grandchildren are Jews. How many Nazis do you know of that have a Jewish daughter and Jewish grandchildren? Name them. You can't. And Trump is unquestionably pro-Israel. Haven't you been paying attention to the news? Recently, he caused a controversy by saying that Jerusalem was the eternal capital of Israel, and he's moving the U.S. Embassy there. That's a pro-Israeli, pro-Jewish move. And he admits that Israel is for Jews. It is the Jewish state. Duh, hello. So how can he be a Nazi if he's pro-Israel? He loves Jews. He and Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, are very good friends. So stop calling him a Nazi and then claim out of the other side of your mouth that you're against hatred, you're against name-calling, you're against ad hominem attacks, you're a progressive, you're a liberal, you want to do what's right, but yet you say these stupid things that totally destroy any claim you have to the so-called moral high ground. But that's exactly what has happened. It's happened out of Hollywood and these talking moron celebrities who don't live in the real world, celebrities who make movies that glorify violence and guns, but yet they're anti-gun. Hypocrites is what they are. So let's now segue to the bottom line issue of what happens when you call a country a shithole nation. When you call any nation a shithole country, it is not automatically racism unless the motives for doing it are racist driven. When you single out a specific race and you bar them from entering a country, that is racism. When you say that blacks are lazy, that Jews are greedy, that Germans are Nazis, that is racism. But if I say that a country is a shithole nation, that is not automatically racism. And this is what disgusts me about the so-called liberals and progressives who like to impose their morals on people and say, this is the way you should be, shame on you for not being this way. They're missing the point. Their logic destroys itself. And let me share with you real quickly some conversations I've had over the years, having been to 27 countries. Now, I left the United States in the year 2000. I was gone from the United States for 18 years, just about, okay? Now, that's almost 2 decades of time. And I have talked about many countries, sharing experiences with my travels to 27 of them. And I have even described one country, which I won't mention because I don't want it to distract from this conversation here. I've described it as a shithole country. Not because I hate its people. I don't. I've got many, many friends there, and I'm still in regular contact with them. In fact, even a couple moments before the show broadcast here, because I love them. They're wonderful people. It doesn't matter what country they're living in. It doesn't matter what race they are. But when I say that a country is a shithole country or shithole nation or shithole government, I'm referring to nations that make a point to brutalize their people, keep them in poverty, murder them, refuse to develop them. They're widely corrupt. They're engaged in stupid, superstitious traditions that harm the country instead of moving it forward. Those are standard accepted definitions of what the term is called shithole country. That doesn't mean you're saying, I hate this race, I hate that race. Race has nothing to do with it. Because when you look at the dynamics and the politics that go on in these shithole countries, and Haiti is one of them, that doesn't mean that you hate all Haitians. I got news for you. I hate nobody. Nobody. I don't even hate bin Laden, and he killed two of my friends. I lost two friends in the terrorist attacks of 9/11 in New York. Do I hate bin Laden? No. Was I glad he got killed? Absolutely delighted. He deserved it. And I believe in the death penalty for people who murder like that, and certainly terrorists, because we have to believe, or we have to admit, that the very definition of terrorism is the deliberate, systematic targeting of innocent people, for the purpose of political or social gain. And when people murder innocent people, I believe that they forfeit their right to life. I am pro-death penalty, not because I buy into the false equivalent argument that it's a deterrent. It's not a deterrent. Deterrency is not the point. The point is justice. When you sit there and commit murder, especially of innocent people, in my opinion, you forfeit your right to life. So when CNN and other networks are saying that it's racist to call Haiti a shithole country, well, I'm sorry. They're out to lunch on that one. It is a shithole country. It is backwards. It is poverty like you can't believe. Do you know that in Haiti, they actually make cookies out of dirt? They give it to their kids and they sell it even on the market because they're so poor and backwards, not because of the average Haitian, but because of the corrupt government and the refusal of the international community to rise up and do something, that this causes the problem. We'll be back for the fourth and final segment after this commercial break.
Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X-Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer, once again, is the legendary one and only Rob McConnell. Boy, time always goes by so fast when I do this show. I guess that means I'm having fun. Supposedly, time goes by when you're having fun. At least that's been my limited life experience. And I just love this episode because we're talking about a very important issue. Yet another one that has polarized the nation and much of the world, and that is this controversy over Donald Trump supposedly saying, because we can't prove it with 100% certainty, referring to certain countries as shithole countries or shithole nations. And of course, people say that that's racism. And you have the charges against Trump by Durbin. Durbin has credibility problems, and other people who were in that room do not support his version of events. Bottom line is we will never know, as of this show at least, with 100% certainty what did happen, but there's a lot of lessons to learn in the dynamics and the messages, if you will, of what happened. And of course, that is discussing the issue of racism itself, which is always important, how the so-called progressives and liberals lose the moral higher ground they claim to hold when they start calling Trump a Nazi when he's not. That's beyond dispute. And Trump, of course, is guilty of not only lying and denying things which have been true, but he's also made racist comments in the past. That is beyond dispute. And in the recent past, like when he ran for president, even though he says he's not a racist. So there's a lot of stuff in this soup mix, if you will, of controversy that we can all learn from. And what is important with everything in life is that we always learn, even if we don't like the lessons we are taught. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that issue. Again, I will tell you from my own firsthand experience, having been in 27 countries, I have talked to many people in those countries, especially in social situations and pubs and places like that and restaurants at their homes. And I've heard people refer to other countries as being shitholes. And it's very rarely did I ever hear anybody say, if ever, that they hated that race in particular. I remember real quickly when I was in Prague and the Czechs were joining the European Union and other countries not as developed as the Czech Republic were also going to join the EU. And Czechs would tell me they didn't want Hungarians to join. They didn't want Serbians to join. And it's not that they said, because I hate Serbians. I never heard anybody say, I don't want someone to join the EU because I hate them. What I did hear them say is it was a shithole country. And I'll give you one real example that was even talked about by the president of the Czech Republic at the time. This was Václav Klaus. Now, you may remember that the country of Greece joined the EU. And the country of Greece, of course, has had financial problems. And we now know that some of the same bastard companies that caused the mortgage implosion were responsible for cooking Greece's financial books, and they made lots of money in corruption. And Greece was not really ready to meet the criteria of joining the EU, but Germany, France, and working with financial houses in New York, again, some of the same entities that were allowed to get away with helping cause the mortgage financial crisis, and then were later bailed out by the Obama administration when they sold out to those financial interests in Wall Street. These are some of Hillary Clinton's buddies, because Obama was the new kid on the block at the time, but Hillary Clinton wasn't. And you see that President Klaus had said, we're not going to join the Eurozone. That is, we're not going to allow the euro currency, because if anything goes wrong with Greece, and something will, we as a small country will have to help bail their fat out of the fire. We cannot afford it, and we don't want to do that. And he was widely criticized again for having that stance, even by the bureaucrats that live in ivory towers in Brussels. But yet he was right. Look what happened with Greece a few years later. They financially imploded. They're still not stable today. And he was right that they weren't ready for prime time. Now, did Klaus say, I don't want to join the Eurozone because I hate Greeks? No, he never said that. He was pointing out that the country was not ready, and it would be foolish to try to do this when you're not ready. Duh, hello. And he was right. And I remember talking to several Czech friends in pubs, because pubs is where a lot of people in Europe get together and just hang out and be friends. It's everywhere in Europe. I never heard a single person say, I don't want to do this because I hate Greeks. No, they were talking about the government, how corrupt it was. Not the average Greek person, but the government, the standard of living, the poverty, the unemployment. Those are government-related caused things. And that exactly is the key difference here that was lost on all the people who stormed and rushed to attack Trump, who are, let's be honest, just looking for the latest excuse to attack him because they hate him. And yes, he is a polarizing figure. And he doesn't mince words, and he shoots from the hip, and he's not always right. He often gets it wrong, but he is what he is, for better or for worse. Now, let's segue to a different topic real quick to end this show. Recently, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited India, and India and Israel signed several deals to increase further economic cooperation and to go ahead and agree to do several things, including, believe it or not, engaging in joint research to study homeopathy medicine. Now, I will tell you as a Jew and with many friends in Israel, Israelis are shaking their heads over that because Jewish doctors will tell you, almost to a man and a woman, that homeopathy is unicorn science. It's BS, it's fraud, it doesn't work. It relies on the placebo effect. And India, unfortunately, is ranked a dismal 154 out of 195 countries in the Healthcare Access and Quality Index because millions of Indians die each year, or actually I don't know what the exact number is, I'll be honest with you, in part because they never get valid scientific medical treatment. It's either not available to them or they're passed off to some homeopath who gives them something that isn't going to work. It can't work. And then the person dies because they never were treated the proper way. And this is because India, while it may be the world's largest democracy, is, we have to admit, also the world's most superstitious country and the most corrupt democracy on the planet. So while Indian politicians are all gaga now over the recent joint agreements signed with Israel during Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit, which covers everything from fighting against terrorism to making movies, one of these joint ventures that was inked has the Israeli scientific community shaking their heads in disbelief, smiling to their Indian counterparts politely out of consideration for the larger issue of increased economic and development ties between the two countries. In other words, put another way, it's pure politics, nothing else. So the issue has to do with a form of undeniable quackery called homeopathy. Israel and India have now agreed to form a joint research team to scientifically study homeopathy medicine. Now, again, there's only one problem with this objective. Calling homeopathy medicine is like calling a dancing unicorn a car, and unicorns, of course, don't exist. Now, while India is certainly the world's largest democracy, as I've said, it's also the largest corrupt democracy, and it is the largest superstitious nation on earth, these two latter facts are nothing to be proud of. So I predict that whatever this new joint research team ends up doing, it will never prove scientifically that homeopathy really works. The reason for this is beyond dispute and couldn't be more simple. Science decades ago, when I was in high school, did proper due diligence on this issue. Homeopathy is not only a fraud, it is largely the equivalent of sugar water and again relies on the placebo effect. Now, Israeli scientists, as well as countless others in the West, again, long ago proved that homeopathy not only doesn't work, it cannot work. The reason is obvious basic logic, 101. When a substance is diluted down to nothing, nothing means nothing, period. Nada, zero, nothing is nothing. Now, just to cite one example, if you're upset that I'm claiming homeopathy is a fraud, and it is, you might want to know that Australia's top scientific body reviewed about 1,800 supposedly scientific papers on homeopathy. About 230 odd of them were done rigorously enough to where they could be peer-reviewed. And their conclusion couldn't be more clear. It's a fraud. Their conclusions have also independently been backed up by still more studies going back decades. Now, Israeli doctors know that homeopathy doesn't work. India, once again, is wasting money that would better be spent elsewhere, grounded in reality. But unfortunately, as long as India remains absurdly superstitious, stuck in Stone Age thinking, so will its politics remain. This is obvious. Now, if you don't believe me and you're someone who naively believes in homeopathy, just go ahead and Google any of the scientific studies that show that it doesn't work. And if you can disprove them, and I would challenge you to try, you will probably get a Nobel Peace Prize because you'll make a breakthrough that will truly transform humanity. Well, you'll have to forgive me if I don't hold my breath until that moment happens. I couldn't hold it that long. It's not going to happen. It's like trying to say that astronomy is astrology. No, it's not. They're two very separate things. Now, thanks for joining me on this episode of Kal's Corner here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Next week, next show, we're going to talk about how the gay community is using Hollywood movies and other subtle tactics to try to permeate our culture and convince even young children that being homosexual is okay, that it's normal, and a bunch of other stuff that isn't really grounded in facts. And without judging it, we're going to stick to facts. I want to be clear on that. But we'll show you some surprising places where this creeping movement, these subtle subliminal advertising gimmicks are being used. And in my opinion, it's wrong no matter what the cause is involved. In this case, it's homosexuality. My name is Kal Korff. I'm your host of Kal's Corner Radio here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week at the same time. Take care.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.